Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Brennan,
And I'm Tristan.
and we're the Canada Geeks, brought to you by Common Connection, the store that we play at.
Yeah, this is a store I've played at in Oakville for about 3 years now, off and on. Whenever I came back from school, and it's by far my favorite store in the GTA when it comes to a Magic Play group.
Yeah, I just moved to Mississauga like a year and a half ago, and I was looking for stores in the area. Found Common Connection, and it ends up being like one of the premier stores in the area. They have everything you could possibly want. When I walked into that back room and saw all those binders, it was incredible.
Yeah, they have quite the storage of Magic cards, and yeah, I mean, just like you, I think the owners try to buy a lot of Magic cards to give updated inventory for Magic players, whether you're a standard or EDH player. But for EDH players, they have a fantastic play group, and the store I think is really geared toward that when it comes to what they put in their showcase. So I know I've personally enjoyed constantly going in there.
Yeah, it's like one of the first stores I actually like felt comfortable like sitting down and actually playing a commander game. I realize all my decks are bad basically, and that's where we met.
Yeah, actually, one fateful day, Brennan asked if he could sit down at our table, and me, being the gracious king I am, let him join. But yeah, we had a really fun time, and I mean, Tuesday nights at Comic Connection for EDH or Commander is like one of my favorite pastimes. So as long as I'm not working, that's like where I go, to relax and enjoy the company of friends.
Yeah, exactly. So, who are we? We are a couple magic enthusiasts. Um, we love Commander, and we thought we'd start a podcast to talk about our passion.
Yeah, I mean, for the podcast, I think we're going to try to be pretty free flowing with the ideas. So today, I think we're focusing on, how we got into Magic and a little bit of an introduction to ourselves. And hopefully, future podcasts will be about deck techs and deck building and themes in EDH, talking about play styles and power levels in your local group or in your friend group. Because I think these are important themes that as we move into a post COVID world and looking for play groups and stuff like that, whether it be online or not, that you should always try to talk about and think about moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. So, with that being said, what got you into Commander?
So I had a little bit of a weird way of getting into Magic. I originally played a miniature game called Warhammer back in the day, and I played at a store called X Planet Games years ago. And the group and the owner there also played Magic quite a bit, and they always had a group going. It was never empty when it came to Magic, and especially in EDH, that was kind of the only format they played. So just by being in the store playing Warhammer, I just got into what are these trading cards, and slowly I got more and more and more into it, and to the point where I built a deck and kept buying new cards and just got absolutely fascinated and fell in love with it. And to this day, EDH is really the only format I play. So I started back in Gate Crash, which if I'm not mistaken, was 2013. So quite a long time. And I've had the privilege of watching EDH and Commander evolve over the years.
Or degenerate, depending on your
Depending on,
stance.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I grew up in an EDH play group in which Zagana, Prime Speaker, was like the commander of that year. I think everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is way too overpowered." And now, when it comes to Simic, she's definitely not the most powerful thing you can be doing. So just to show how the format has really evolved comparatively since then.
Yeah, it's gone from hey, I can draw 5 cards when this ETB's for 7, or I can draw a card every time I do anything.
Or I'm just gonna flip my deck. You're dead. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what about you? What got you into Magic?
So I started around the same time. I believe it was M12, and I just started playing like kitchen table Magic. Some friends and I picked up some of the like intro pack like precons, and just started playing like 60 card formats like that. But like We just played cards that we thought were cool and tried to make decks around like huge creatures and stuff like that. Like I wasn't aware of EDH at the time. We kept playing for several years, and then I stopped playing for a bit. And when I came back, my play group introduced me to Commander. I sat down and played my friend Nick's Nekusar deck, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen," and immediately started brewing my own deck.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it starts. That first game, or when you play that really cool commander, you're like, oh, this is exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
what are some of the reasons that you decided that commander was like the format for you? Like when you played it, what was so encouraging about it?
Uh, so like previously, like building in my deck building, like I said, like I would play with cards that I thought were cool. So now I can build an entire deck around a general that I think is just a cool card, and I can. It's singleton, so I don't have to worry about having four copies of everything in there, which like can be expensive. I'm sure modern players can attest, or legacy or vintage.
Yeah,
um,
I think my favorite part is just the fact that you get to play with the entirety of the history of Magic, being
yeah,
able to pull from every set. I think, and that kind of leads into brewing in the sense of my one of my favorite pastimes is like looking back into old Magic sets and just rummaging through old cards and old effects and see, how can I make this interesting, or how can I make this work in a modern EDH game? So
yeah.
that's definitely one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, like I love sitting down at a table and playing something and everyone being like, "What is that? I've never seen that card in my life."
I know, and I think Comic Connection is pretty good for that. You can go to a lot of tables and never see the same commanders, which I can appreciate. Not
Yeah.
only because people there like to play a lot of decks, but I think they also like to change it up. So I think we all have our pet decks, but a lot of people are willing just to change it up and try new things, especially with like new sets coming out too.
Yeah, so and especially so frequently, right? Like
Hmm.
uh
Yeah.
I know people are brewing the new commanders before the set's even released.
I know that's what I did too. I'm putting together, about to place an order for a Catherall deck, which I'm gonna bring to our next Sunday night, hopefully, and smash your face.
Oh, I'm terrified already. Um yeah, so what decks are you currently playing? Like what's your sort of rotation?
Yeah, so I mean, I originally started my very first EDH deck was a mono black vampire deck, and that over the years kind of quickly evolved into more of a mono black control combo deck, but purposely not going infinite. And I just kind of found cards that I fell in love with and really wanted to try to make work. So it ended up being a CDC deck, which is what it is today. Very like control heavy lands. So that's probably my pet deck, and then after that, I have a nice, unique Haunt of Hightower deck, which is another mono black deck. I also play Rakdos, which is probably one of my favorite decks these days, just because I love aggro, and it's such a underrated part of EDH and Commander. And
Yeah,
I know you like Rakdos, perhaps a little bit more on the fun, less competitive side, but
for sure.
still one of our favorite commanders together.
Yep.
And then, as I said, I'm starting a Kethril deck, so it'll be interesting because I've never played Abzan before. So it's a color combination I'm interested to kind of delve into, see what it has to offer, and that kind of stuff. Mono black has been like my bread and butter, and what I specialize in. It's what I like study almost when it comes to Magic. So moving outside of my comfort zone and not having access to blue, I think is definitely going to be interesting for me, and it'll get a few games in to understand, what is good and what isn't. But I'm kind of happy and excited to do that for sure. Um, and then I play a bad Kess Grixis Planeswalkers deck and a interesting, depending on what part of the table you're on, Mareki Esper Control deck. So kind
Oh,
of, covering all my
totally
bases.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. No, that deck is a nightmare to play against. Take my word for it.
If you ever want to lose all your friends at a Magic play group for EDH, do just play Mareki. They'll love all having their creatures stolen. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. We played a game a couple Sundays ago where I was playing Kelsey in the Plague, and Tristan stole him like 3 or 4 times and killed him like 5 times. It
Oh,
was
that's just the best part. That's what Esper is all about. Is really just sticking it to the man.
yeah.
But what about you? What decks are in your rotation? I know you're a big brewer, so you always have something new on the go.
Yeah. So I think I have like 11 decks right now. Some of them are currently being cannibalized to make other ones, so it's kind of just a mess. Um, my first deck I ever made was Muldrotha, and it was I actually saw Game Nights. Um, like shout out to Game Nights if they're listening. Um, but yeah, like it was just so cool, and there's like so much value being able to play from your graveyard, and just it's not like a linear commander that can only do like one sort of thing. Like my deck started out as a like hidden commander Hapatra deck trying to do -1 counter stuff, and there's not a ton of like reason to play Soul Tie -1 counter, so I kind of moved away from that. Um, yeah, then it became like sort of a zombie reanimation deck with a little bit of mill involved in it, and then it is now just a straight up mill deck. And actually, it's because one of the first cards I ever pulled in a pack was Lord of Extinction.
Oh yeah, yeah, that big boy.
Yeah, its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. So I was trying to make that card work in like 60 card formats like forever, and then it just seemed like a good. Hey, if I can mill even half of people's decks and like get Swiftfoot boots on this thing and swing at somebody for 100 and something,
Yeah,
it's
you're
pretty.
gonna one shot someone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, so that like Muldroth is my main deck that I play. I also play Rakdos Lord of Riot's Minotaur tribal deck, which I know Tristan loves and appreciates.
You could say something along those lines.
Yeah, I was legitimately playing a 2-2 that couldn't block, so a 2-2 with downside. That's how good Minotaurs are. But thanks to Theros Beyond Death, we got a little bit of upgrade.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, there's always those people in the group that can, I mean, either play those theme decks or at least people that can appreciate them. And I mean, it's important to have that in your play group. Some people don't always want to play super high Magic or play against stacks all the time. So being able to kind of take it down a notch and have a nice slower game can be fun, and I think it fits nicely in there.
Yeah, and being like going back to playing cards that people don't see all the time, right? Like I don't
Mm.
know how many Minotaur tribal commanders there are out there apart from like the Heb decks and stuff like that. But
And how many times did you go to Comic Connection to search through all those damn binders for all those odds and ends Minotaur cards? I'm sure a few times.
oh yeah, no, for sure. I've recently
Yeah.
upgraded them all to foils because they're like 50 cents each.
Oh,
Um,
big spender.
yeah, maybe one day I'll get the Neheb the Eternal foil. It's like $30, so I can't really, but
Oh, it's yeah, way out of your price range.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not really worth it. I like I said, I'm also playing Kelsing the Plague, the new Commander 2020. It's one of the pre-con commanders.
The
Uh,
Mardu commander, yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting deck. I initially brewed it as a sort of like pinger deck, um, but it actually lends itself better to being a Mardu control deck with like a sort of Voltron element to it. I found.
Yeah, having a commander that can get, permanently bigger with those experience counters, and naturally having haste is a huge boon for Mardu, I think. I mean, not having to enable something like that is fantastic. So at least the one game I played it against it, I was really interested. Maybe that would be a deck I'd play for Mardu in the future, but I definitely think it's a really cool deck for sure.
Yeah, I'm really liking it, and I guess the other deck I'm really playing is my Grumgully aggro +1/+1 counter elf ball deck.
Minor elf balls, some other non-elf.
Yeah, some other non elves, like just enough elves for it to be like kind of elf tribal. But the origin of that deck was I don't know, Grumgully the Generous, in my mind, immediately when I saw it, I thought about sort of like a group hug strategy, and then like, okay, well, maybe it can be like Christmas themed, so I have like snow covered lands, and that's where the elves came from, and yeah, that's my brewing brain at work.
Yeah, definitely not what every commander player thinks of when they're brewing cool strategies.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, it's it's a really cool deck. Like I've won a few games with it. It's surprisingly fast. But yeah, I'm constantly trying to upgrade it. I'm trying to get away from brewing as many decks and then just start refining the ones that I have.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing for EDH players. Like as they get so excited about building decks, and then they realize, oh, I don't have enough of one card, so I have to either stop brewing or start butchering my old decks. And you kind of have this hodgepodge of like 8 decks, and none of them are like fully ready to go. And yeah, I don't know. It's definitely interesting, but if you're a brewer and that's what you like about EDH is having access to the library of cards, then go for it, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like we're not here to tell anybody how to play, but
Well,
maybe
maybe
we can.
me.
Yeah, maybe we can teach you how to play a little better.
Well, speaking of interesting or unique cards, do you have any pet cards these days? Either stuff that you try to slot in decks, or stuff that you always want to throw in, and maybe don't make the cut, but it's just a fan favorite of yours.
uh, yes, I do. I actually have a list of 3 cards. How about you?
I turns out I have three as well. Look at great minds think alike.
Wow, we didn't even work this out beforehand or anything.
No planning whatsoever.
Yeah, but good transition. I liked it. Um, so my first card, uh, I absolutely love it. I initially built it as a commander deck. Is Toshiro Umezawa. So Toshiro reads Bushido 1, which is basically irrelevant. But the important part is your creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from play. You may play an instant card from your graveyard. If that card would be put into the graveyard this turn, remove it from the game instead. So, like I said, like I initially had a commander deck built around this guy where he was the only creature. I had a lot of like protection for him, and I was just playing a lot of like instant speed kill spells. But I think slotting this guy into any sort of spellslinger deck that can play black is just like great value.
Hmm. Yeah, he really does add a lot of value to mono black decks and to decks perhaps that use him but don't really utilize getting stuff back from the graveyard, and being able to cast instants, which are traditionally very powerful in black, over again really just pretty much doubles their value. And kill spells and stuff along those lines really kind of play to his strength. So I can see why you love that card, and it's a beautiful foil too if you've ever seen it.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, it's interesting because like if you were to cast an instant speed kill spell, you can play that same one again off the trigger,
Yeah, yeah.
which is really cool. I was actually talking to a friend about putting it in his Kess deck because Kess lets you cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard like once per turn.
Hmm.
So a creature incidentally dying, and then you with Toshiro, and then you can cast an instant from your graveyard. It helps you cast your like lesser your less important spells
Hmm.
like from Kess, right?
Yeah, and being able to recast even the simplest things like ponder, or sorry, brainstorm, or any kind of like anticipate or impulse. Those really good value blue cards that let you sift through your library is definitely fantastic. So some
Yeah.
double value there. But I will say, be careful playing something like that, because you really do have to make sure that your deck has enough interaction to take advantage. You don't want to just slot into a deck and uh, just immediately think it's going to have value. You do need to make sure you have the interaction to support a card like that.
Yep. Okay. How about you?
Probably my like favorite. I think the one I play in all my black decks these days is Meosion of the Night's Reach, which is a very simple Three black, five colorless, a 5/2. And it says when you cast it from your hand, it comes in with a divinity counter. You may remove the divinity counter at any time to have opponents discard their hands. And as long as it has the divinity counter on it, it's indestructible. Although it looks like it's flying in the picture, unfortunately, it does not have flying. But just to kind of, think about that really quickly, the power is right there. You don't really need to think about it. Taking off a counter to at instant speed to have opponents discard their hands and is an extremely powerful factor in EDH. Being able to target all your opponents at once with that really does change the dynamic in a game. And being able to hold it for instant speed, especially if you know you're playing against a blue player that has the ability to draw a lot of cards, is a fantastic way to deal with them. And it's a very fair card as well.
Yeah.
Paying 8 mana and having to play it from hand, those are pretty heavy restrictions. So I think the play patterns on it are very fair. And I think the play design built it quite well, not trying to make it overpowered, but still having a fantastic effect for dumping that kind of mana into a creature. So, something I play in Haunt of Hightower, something I play in Sidisi. It's great at control. Yeah, not much else to say about it. Just one of my favorite card and very kind of crazy art.
Yeah.
And I think Kamigawa is a little underappreciated, but one of my favorite pieces of art as well.
It's like the most hipster set now. Everyone wants to go back to Kamigawa.
Yeah, and it's funny because Kamigawa was, I think, Magic's worst performing set of all time. So it's hilarious
we weren't
that
there. We were there to buy it.
Yeah, we had all those smooth brains. They didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah. And I think this card too, like being indestructible otherwise, is good protection on it, right? Like,
yeah, I mean it's a decent blocker. It can hit back well. I mean, traditionally you never use it for that because you want to really get the impact, and you don't want to pass the turn and let your opponents play cards from their hand, because as soon as they see that card come down, they know, oh, I have to cast all the spells I can from my hand, right? They're not going to hold stuff back in response. So, I mean, I think that if you really wanted to get your damage in, you could, but honestly, taking off the counter at the right time and pretty early on is just strictly the right play.
Yeah, that's what you're paying 8 mana to do.
Exactly, yeah. Not for a 5/2 indestructible.
Yeah. Well, maybe some people, man. This is EDH, and this is a very EDH card.
Yes, that is true. It kind of depicts the best part of EDH, having these very big, cool cards you couldn't otherwise play in Standard or Modern or Legacy. So really cool to see.
Okay. My next card is Mwanvuli Beast Tracker. It's a 2/1 for colorless and 2 green. It reads, when Mwanvuli Beast Tracker enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with Death Touch, Hexproof, Reach, or Trample. Reveal it, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it. So it acts as a 3 mana sorcery speed worldly tutor for for specific keywords. But
yeah,
I think if you're playing mono green decks and you are trying to dig for like the reason you're playing mono green decks, which is like big creatures, those cards have those keywords, right? Like you build decks sort of around this card, right? Like, hey, I know I can get this, I can get this.
I mean, in green, or especially in mono green, being able to tutor regardless of what you're tutoring for outside of lands is a very rare ability, and you shouldn't discount that ability right away just because there's a lot of restrictions on it. So I think it's actually playable in EDH, especially if you're playing mono green, because you don't have the ability to tutor like you would in a black deck or you would in a blue deck to get card quality. So I think it's definitely an underappreciated card, and I think it has its place if you really want those extra tutors. And you'll also find with a lot of the powerful cards in EDH, some of them just naturally have those keywords, like Vorinclex and other big boys. They just kind of naturally gravitate to those keywords, so you don't have to put in too much work to get value out of it.
Yeah, like I'm running it in my mono green Goreclaw deck, which I didn't talk about. but yeah, like I know what cards I can get with it, and especially if you're building a deck around creatures and creatures with ETBs, like specifically,
Hmm.
um, it's good to have tutors, and the card is 25 cents,
Yeah.
and the comparison worldly tutor is 49.99. This is American, so yeah, it's good for budget decks as well.
Yeah. And I mean, like, outside of Worldly Tutor, can you really think of that many cards that literally say search your library outside of ramp cards, right? So
Yeah,
definitely something shouldn't be discounted right away.
yeah. Uh, Back to you, sir. Number two.
So yeah, my next card, uh, you know, big surprise, another mono black card. It's Zowdun the One Eyed. So this is from very early on in Magic's history. It's from Portal Three Kingdoms, and it's a 3/2 with horsemanship. And if you don't know what horsemanship is, it's like the best unblockable thing you've ever heard. Um, and it has you can sack his Zowdun to get a black card from your graveyard back into your hand. You must do this. Use this ability before combat on your turn. So, although this is a really old card and doesn't, immediately scream power, I think it plays to that, the theme we were talking about earlier with Kashiro, is having value in black. Being able to regrow cards is something not only in black but in EDH is very valuable.
Yeah,
And having targeted ones like Ewit is just, or Eternal Witness is just not something you find in black. So being able to regrow something like Damnation or a Kill Spell or a Tutor is extremely valuable in EDH, and so I kind of think he fits nicely in there. And he's very balanced. I mean, he's not a Yawgmoth's Will. You can't just play your entire graveyard in a turn. You're
yeah,
getting back one card, so I don't think people can really complain about him. If you're trying to play a very like medium power level kind of game, whether he's your commander, whether he's just a card you're slotting into a deck, I think he is very valuable and just a cool card. I don't know if you go to your local game store and see one, but he has a very nice foil that is not too expensive compared to the original Portal cards. So if you want a nice showcase card or a centerpiece card for a deck, he is definitely a very interesting, cool looking foil.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, the promo is incredible, and like
Yeah.
it's 4 mana to regrow anything. Like
Yeah, and it's
that's insane
it's
value.
instant, right?
Yeah,
Like you can do it as soon as you cast it, you get back right away. So if you really need a damnation because there's a Rakdos player jumping down your throat next turn, it's right then and there. And especially if you're playing mono black or a deck that can ramp really hard like Golgari or whatnot, you'll usually have access to that mana. So getting that card quality back into your hand, I think, is really powerful. So
yeah,
yeah, just good card.
yeah. I don't know. Just looking at it, like I'm not saying you should play it like this, but literally nothing except for horsemanship can block this thing, and you can use
Well,
its ability in response
yeah.
before
Well, I mean,
combat.
yes. I mean, it does have some like aggro ability. I mean, horsemanship is definitely a very a sacred part of Magic's universe. I mean, not many people know about it. Not many cards have it. And I will admit, I did play it as an aggro general for a bit just to kind of see if it could do anything, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, if you're either playing an aggro deck with black in it, or alternatively, if you want to run it as the commander because he is so powerful when it comes to no one can really block him. Um, you can do that and equip things like Lash Wraith or um, card or Night Howler, things that give him a
Yeah,
lot of power from graveyards and stuff. So I think the ability is there to make him into an aggro general, and having that extra utility that definitely doesn't hurt. For a 4 mana commander, in mono black, you can't really beat him.
yeah. And my last card kind of goes into this potential Voltron strategy. Um, it's Trailblazer's Boots. It's a 2 mana equipment with Equip 2, and it says Equipped creature has non basic land walk. So for 4 mana, you basically get unblockable on whatever creature you want.
Hmm.
Um, in any sort of like Voltron strategy where you're just trying to kill people with your commander, I think this card is super underplayed.
I mean, it is a lot of an mana investment. I think the reason why it perhaps is underplayed is it's a lot easier to interact with than something like Greaves or Boots because it has no innate protection it's giving your creature.
Yeah.
But I mean, Unblockable is definitely a fantastic, aggro strategy for all intents and purposes. So I can see the power there just naturally. But the reason perhaps why it's not played more often is because it's very telegraphed, right? If you play these Boots, your opponents are going to know,
Yeah.
he's swinging at me, and he's trying to make sure that no matter how gummed up the board is, that he's gonna hit someone. So
Yeah.
it can telegraph to your opponents. So
I think in like Voltron strategies, like I don't know, maybe like Skullbriar or Valduke or something like that. Like you're saying, the board does get gummed up, and if you're playing one of these like Voltron aggro strategies, you kind of have to just stick on one person and kill them. But this for 4 mana, it doesn't matter. Like you can attack anybody you want, really, right?
yeah. No, it's definitely a cool card, and I think Landwalk in general is something EDH players don't really remember unless they lived through the sets that had it. So again, one of these kind of parts of EDH that if you're a new player, you might want to take a look into for your strategies that you're trying to accomplish, because it can really fit in nicely for sure. And you don't just have to look at these Boots; you can look at the wider theme of Island Walk or Mountain Walk, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
definitely cool stuff.
Yeah, in my Rakdos Minotaur Tribal deck, with it being Rakdos colors, a lot of the sort of draw spells that I have, you have to discard cards as part of the cost, and discarding like a Filth or an Anger, if you control a mountain or if you control a swamp, like giving your creature Swamp Walk, is amazing, and people don't really see it coming, especially if you're playing like Urborg and then all
that
their
was
lands.
what I was going to lead into. Is Urborg is a fantastic enabler for something like that.
Yeah.
Being able to, I know when back in the good old days when I played Shieldred, having a 7/7 or a 6/6 with Swamp Walk is definitely not something people expect, and and again, because Land Walk is such a niche part of EDH, it's something people forget about so quickly. And kind of leading into that idea of innate protection or innate secrecy, just because people just have never played against it before. So not a part to look away from.
Yeah. Okay, so
And then
let's do your last card quickly.
Yeah.
Because we have
So-
to get going.
Yeah, but I know for everyone out there, we do have a stream for Magic on Sunday night, so we usually start at 8 o'clock Eastern time. But my last card quick is I hummed and hawed on it, but Right of the Machine, which is an old black card that's 2 black, 2 colors. It says sack creature, you gain control of target non-artifact, non-black creature. So, very interesting part of black is, you have that Reanimator package, and this is, a way to kind of amplify that. Not only are you taking control of a creature, but in essence, you're taking away a creature from an opponent. So something like a Foreign Klex or whatnot, you can really, really take advantage of and immediately gain that advantage. So it's one of my favorite kind of old black cards. And if you're playing a deck that really cares about sacrifice, it also leads into that package as well.
Yeah, I've actually never seen this card before in my
I know.
life.
Yeah, I play it in Kess because it's a fantastic card in the sense of not only does it gain control of the creature, but you also want to sack your general because you want to make her cost more mana so you can exile more cards next time you cast her. So it kind of leads into that theme, and it fits right perfectly there into that, or not Kess, sorry, Jaleva deck. My mistake.
Yeah.
So really cool card there.
Okay, awesome. Well, that was our podcast. Let us know what you think in the comments. We'll definitely be back.
And to anyone else in Oakville, Mississauga area, if you're looking for a Magic fix or to buy some new cards, Comic Connection is open, whether it be curbside pickup or if you want to go inside and browse. They have some really friendly staff there, that will definitely help you if you have a list of cards or whether you need some recommendations. They're fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. And don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Instagram at the Canada Geeks. We stream once a week on Twitch, Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. We play Commander home games, and that's also at the Canada Geeks. And just search for us on YouTube, uh, the Canada Geeks. All right, everyone take care. Bye.